Hello, everyone. My guest this week on the Long Form podcast is the RDF spokesperson, Ronald Rwivanga, Brigadier General. We are talking live from Cabo Delgado, Mozambique. Afande Ronald.
Yes.
Welcome to the Long Form.
Thank you very much.
So I usually have icebreakers, before we go into the real conversation. And these icebreakers help us have a better understanding of, as the listeners, of who this person is and what does their day-to-day look like. So I want to ask you, I want to know a little bit more about your journey as a soldier. When you joined the fighting forces, if that was a profession, when you're a child and you were thinking, when we get into secondary school, very often we're thinking, I want to do this, I want to do this, I want to be a journalist, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a writer. Did you ever think that you would, at that time, did you think that you'd become a soldier?
No.
Yeah.
I joined the army after the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi. So this was basically the motivating factor. I wanted to join the force that would halt anything to do with genocide in the future. So I joined my university in 1994 after the genocide, but I was basically thinking about the aftermath after my university. So and it kept coming in my mind. So I made the decision when there was a cadet course that was scheduled after my university, the first cadet course in Rwanda. So I joined it after completing my studies. So I liked the training, quite tough. And after completing my cadet, I began my journey. My journey, I deployed as a platoon commander in a fighting force in the DRC.
Okay.
And in the Second Congo War. And
so
then
that
I
was
later
what
became,
year?
That was 2000, 1999, 2000. Yeah, so then I became an intelligence officer for some time before joining the Presidential Guard, the Republican Guard. Yeah, so I joined the Presidential Guard as a close protection officer.
Are those the ones that we see around the
Yes, the
around
president.
the president?
Then eventually became its intelligence officer for over 10 years.
Okay.
After my period in the Republican Guard, I joined the RDF Command and Staff College as a directing staff. After completing my studies in Fort Leavenworth, Kansas.
That's where HE went in
Yes,
the 80s.
yes. In the 89, 90, before joining the struggle. Yeah, so so I trained for a period of 8 years. I was a trainer, a military lecturer at the RDF Command and Staff College. Within that period, 8 years, I also went as a directing. I became a directing staff in Tanzania. I trained Tanzanians at the TPDF Command and Staff College in Arusha, Tanzania. On my return, I became the course coordinator of the Junior Command and Staff course at Nyachinama, and then later became the course coordinator of the Senior Command and Staff course before I was appointed to be the RDF spokesperson. I have served as the RDF spokesperson for 3 years now.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so, were you born in Rwanda?
No, I was born in Kampala,
Okay.
Uganda. Yeah, I was raised there. I studied there, like many others who studied, abroad in different countries. Yeah.
And so what? So that means your secondary school, primary school, secondary school, university as well?
I had a few years in Nairobi. I studied in St. Mary's, Nairobi, Kenya, for 2 years, from 2, 3, and 4.
Okay.
Then I went to St. Mary's College, Kisubi.
Ah, nice.
From Kisubi, I basically went to a couple of schools, Mbara High School, and then joined Makerere University.
And what did you do?
I did social work and social administration.
Okay. So that's really interesting that you come from, you know, social work to now the armed forces. Did you see certain similarities between what you studied and the career that
The
you're in?
military captures virtually everything. I mean, we cover every facet of our national life in the military. Social work is one of the things we do. Actually, in our human security concepts, we're basically dealing with, you know, social work. So I find it, you know, quite a complementary role in the military. Yeah, and in our operational philosophy, as you are aware, we do not look at security from the perspective of, you know, providing, you know, physical security to people. We look at the wider concept of security. Human security issues, food security, environmental security, you know, energy security, and any other security matter that ensures the safety and security of the public. So our military is involved in virtually everything. That's why I find myself a very relevant component.
So, as RDF spokesperson, can you walk us through your day-to-day when you're maybe not in the field like here, but maybe you're back home at the Midadef building? What does your day look like when you step into the office? And is the first thing that you do, you know, like many of us, open your Twitter and see what is happening around the world, or do you have, you know, are you watching the BBC? What exactly does that look like?
We basically handle both media and public relations. Yeah, we are the face of the RDF. We present an accurate image of what the RDF stands for. So we are on the battlefront, just like the fighting forces on the terrain. We fight misinformation, hate speech, and any other, you know, thing that affects the image of our army. So our battlefront is quite wide. We believe that there are 4 dimensions of, you know, 4 instruments of power. And when the adversary wants to, you know, hit you, they will always use them. There's the diplomatic, information, military, and economic instruments of national power. So the media and my role is actually in the information aspect. So we must ensure that we create, or we present an accurate image of the defense forces, and we try to thwart any attempt to destroy our image, to present our image as if it's, you know, negative. So that's our primary role. Yeah. So on a daily basis, we monitor what is communicated about our army, and then we try to correct whatever misinformation is out there. Yeah.
So again, back to your day-to-day. Let's imagine it's a normal Tuesday afternoon. There is no major crisis, for example. Although I guess when you're in the RDF, you're always getting ready for a crisis. But on a normal day, you come to the office, say 7 a.m. Can you walk us through an average day?
Well, I walk into the office, I check different, you know, media outlets and what they're saying about different things. I must be informed about what goes on actually in my office. I have all the, you know, channels, you know, so I know exactly what is out there. I also monitor the internet and what it talks about, and then I also brief on a daily basis. I brief the CDS and several other, you know, senior military officers on the situation, the media situation. That is important. We respond. We present statements every other day on matters related to security and the military operations, our plans and procedures and activities, our projects. I actually do an annual brief, an annual report on everything that we do in the RDF. So as the public relations officer of the Defense Forces, I must be able to capture virtually everything that the RDF does. One other portfolio that I have been tasked to undertake is also the history component, because everything that we do today is tomorrow's history.
Yes.
And therefore, our media captures everything that we do. So we must be able to record in time, in real time, whatever the RDF is doing, so that it can inform tomorrow. You know, it can inform the generations to come about what RDF achieved. So our office is tasked to do that on a daily basis. Yeah. So we have quite a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I can imagine. You know, do you ever miss, you know, just being out in the field, you know, commanding battle groups instead of, say, having to deal with pesky journalist questions and that very often might even seem very repetitive to you?
No, I don't. I don't because I believe that we are on another front. We are on another front. Like I said, we have 4 dimensions, 4 instruments in which we project our power. And information must be one of them, and it must be as equally important as any of the other 3 dimensions. So I believe that I'm in a battlefront.
Yes.
Fighting misinformation, hate speech, and I carry out strategic comms for the Ministry of Defense and the RDF to ensure that our image is protected.
Yes, which is very important.
It's very important.
In fact, you have such a good image that, unlike other countries in the world, it seems that the RDF is able to almost recruit from the best of us. And what I mean by that is, you know, armies of the past used to be full of, I wouldn't call them street urchins, but they were rough. It was, the armed services was a profession that was for the uneducated. It was the profession for those who did not have any other choices in life. But it seems that, you know, you're able to attract young people who would be very competitive, even in the private sector, not just government. You're able to attract that. What is it about the RDF that makes it such an attractive prospect, not just for young people, but for their parents as well?
A number of things. History is one of them. We have a very good history. We have a track record. We have achievements, quite a good number of achievements. Our predecessors, those that, you know, served in the military before us from 1990 to 94, did an excellent job in stopping a genocide, protecting our borders from threats from without. And generally, whatever we have done kind of informs the next generation that they need to continue these good acts. So whenever we recruit, we are also deliberate in recruiting the best, both for the foot soldiers who are recruited for the basic military training, as well as the cadet courses. We are deliberate in selecting good people. There was a perception that whoever has failed in, you know, in normal life should join the army.
Yes.
To get corrected from the army.
Yes.
I think we don't believe that the army should have second-class citizens, should have failures. We actually recruit people who have a very good reputation. In our recruitment criteria, we ask people to, you know, get a criminal record from their, you know, their areas of residence, from the local leaders who will clear them first before we, you know, we recruit them into the defense forces. So we don't get rejectees in society to join the army, no. And another issue is that we are also deliberate in providing professional training to our servicemen, both at the foot soldier level and at the officer level. Our cadet courses are very good, very good. We have a very good university degree course structure. We have engineering, we have medicine, we have architecture, we We have, civil engineering. We have military sciences, physics, chemistry, biology. We actually focus on sciences, but we are also encouraging humanities. Like in my area, you really need people with a very good background in humanities. Yeah, so we encourage every facet, every aspect of our national life to be involved in military activities.
Where does that philosophy come from?
Well, comes from the fact that you need the best to be the best. You see, and the proof is in the pudding.
Yes,
our army has proved that you really need to pick the very best to be able to perform excellently wherever wherever we deploy. And we have done that. We have been deliberate. And I think one of the things that we also do, which are often neglected by many a failed army, is to avoid serious punishment for people who default. In order to keep certain people in the military. So our measures are very strong. We take very serious measures against those who default, those who go against the rules, norms and conventions of the military. We take very serious measures, and that is why we remain with a few but good officers and men.
Yeah, it's really interesting. So we're having this podcast conversation here in Mozambique, where I'm part of a group of local, regional, and foreign journalists who have come to see what the Rwanda security forces, so that's the Rwanda National Police and the RDF, are doing to bring back peace and security here in this region. The conditions I found are nothing like back home. It's very hot, it's humid, there are bushes. For me, as a person who's come here for the first time, there's very little that reminds me of, whether it is northern province, southern province. This place does not remind me of anywhere I've ever been personally. But despite these conditions and, the heat, the humidity, yesterday it went up to 34 degrees, just in heat, but then you're also throwing in the humidity. And then, I've been wearing the bulletproof vests and wearing boots and the helmet. As someone who would just look at our army on TV, in my head I was thinking, they look very smart, but I did not realize there's a cost to how the army looks. And I got a small taste, this vest. I think between the vest and the helmet, it added another additional 10 kgs on me.
And heat.
And the heat, but despite these conditions, I was able to, last 5 or so days, I've been able to really hang out with the officers, kind of junior officers, senior officers like yourselves, but even the guys on the ground, and just talk to them. And I found them in good humor, very relaxed, and I got me thinking, you're getting some of these young men and women, maybe who had been born in Rwanda, never really traveled. Now you plop them here. They're doing well, extremely resilient. What I want to know is, what is it that you do in terms of training them both physically and mentally that allows them to be so resilient, but not only just resilient, but also able to perform at a high level in a place that they're not familiar with?
Comes from training. Our training, we believe that if you want to fight easy, you must train hard. So these conditions, the conditions that you're seeing here, Darfur, South Sudan, and elsewhere, are actually conditions that we have been conditioned to live in during
Really?
the training. Yeah, our training is rigorous, both for the foot soldier and the officer. These scenarios, these conditions have been, have been trained. We actually know, we have lived these conditions during the training.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's one. Two, our motivation is derived from our cause. Why are we doing something? Why are we doing something? Why are we here? So the protection of civilians is at the center stage of our belief systems. We believe that if your duty is as noble as that, then you must be able to sacrifice, pay the ultimate price if need be, to protect civilians. And this is derived from our history, a history in which, millions were killed.
Yes.
Millions of civilians were killed. And we vowed that this should not happen elsewhere. Wherever we are called upon, we know that this is something we agreed to do because we know what it feels like to be in a situation where, you are helpless. And so we want to do something that others should have done in our case.
I guess it's so interesting because I would understand that as you, the officer corps, right? A lot of you are, not you, but a bit older. They either fought in the War of National Liberation, they fought in the different Congo 1, Congo 2. But I'm looking at some of these younger men who probably were raised in relative peace back home, where, I understand if you, as someone who was actually there, remembers and feels for civilians the way, you should. How about the younger troops? Where are they getting that? How is that message, that intergenerational message, being passed from you guys who fought and stopped the genocide to them who've maybe lived in relative peace? How does that love for civilians, that protection, where does that come from?
It comes from leadership. Our leaders inculcate that culture, that belief in trainees at all levels. So it's something that needs to be passed on from one set of leaders to another. And that is why I keep telling the youth that they are the architects of the peace and security today. The leaders may provide guidance, but the troops, the fighting troops, are the youth who did not fight our struggle. So it's important for them to know that in the jungles of Cabo Delgado, in the scattered bushes of South Sudan, in the deserts of Chad, it is the youth. It is the youth who are doing all these things. These young men that you're talking about are the ones that are fighting the battles.
And women. I've seen a few women on the battlefront.
They're the ones that are doing everything. We are commanding,
Yes.
but they are, performing.
Yes.
And they must understand that. They must understand that with good leadership, a lion can actually command sheep.
That's really interesting.
Okay.
So I want to continue on the conversation we're having about Mozambique. No matter how successful our forces are here, right, in terms of, I've seen, whether it's in Palma, Mocimboa da Praia, Awase, these places that you showed us, there's peace, there's security, people are going about their day. And when you talk to them, they say, thank you, Rwandan forces. Thank you, Abanyarwanda, for, bringing back normalcy in our lives. But no matter how successful we are in bringing back peace, security, normal life here, we eventually have to go home, right? It can be 1 year, it can be 2 years, it can be 10 years. Eventually, we'll have to go back home. But we've also seen that in other countries in the world, maybe not where RDF is concerned, where the pullout of these forces ensures chaos. We saw that in Afghanistan. I think we've seen it we saw it in Rwanda during the genocide. We've seen it in Somalia during the times of the Black Hawk Downs, and so troop pullout is often traumatic for the civilians. How will the RDF ensure, or the Rwanda security forces ensure, that our pullout will not leave people in harm's way?
My only answer to your question is that we must plan for an exit that is, based on tangible outcomes. Our mission was fourfold. We needed to conduct security operations to dislodge insurgents from all their strongholds, which we did to a large extent in the areas that we occupy. We needed to conduct continuous security operations in these areas where we dislodged the insurgents to ensure that the insurgents do not return back. Carry out stabilization operations to ensure that civilians return back to their homes and go on with their normal business. And then lastly, to carry out security sector reforms. We are at that stage whereof we are training. We are capacitating the Mozambican forces through, training at different levels. The EU is also doing their role, but we want to ensure that by the time we leave, they will have a force, not only a force, but also the ability to operate the same way we did. So we do on-job training. We do the train. First of all, there is the training, the formal training, and then there is the on-job integrated operations that we do with them. So once that is conceptualized, then we can withdraw slowly, and that is our plan.
Yes.
That is our plan, and that's more sustainable. I don't think we should have a silver bullet. We should be the ones to determine the destiny of a nation. I think they will play a very big part in contributing to this. So if they can, work with us closely, which I believe they are, we'll have an exit that is, flawless.
I mean, fingers crossed, because we've seen it in history where the exits. I mean, I'm sure as an army man, watching people trying to clamber on planes as the Taliban was.
Not all situations are the same. One thing I can tell you is that Ansar al-Sunnah wa Jamaa was not a popular organization here. They actually terrorized the locals. So I think we shouldn't compare scenarios that are not comparable.
Yeah.
When you have a predominantly popular movement,
it's a bit.
It's different. This one wasn't popular. They were cutting off people's heads and cutting them into pieces, simply because of their belief systems, their religions, and ironically, actually, they destroyed mosques and even killed their fellow Muslims. So I believe that it's important that you understand the philosophy, the understanding, the beliefs of a group before you think they will be successful. The fact that we could dislodge them in 1 month shows that they do not have a political base from which to successfully conduct mobilization activities.
But you say
so
that.
I think yesterday the army commander was very clear about it. He said this organization was not popular. It wasn't at all. Had it been popular, it would have been very difficult for us to dislodge them.
Yes. I guess the question then I must ask is, if they were so easy to dislodge and they were so...
They were not easy to dislodge. It was very easy for us to mobilize people against them because they were unpopular.
Yes.
The fighting itself was difficult. Otherwise, had it been that it was very easy, then they would have been dislodged a long time.
So what is it, if I may, because I'm trying to understand, right? When I watch videos of these, these insurgents, these terrorists, they were young men predominantly with machetes and small firearms. How is it And maybe you can tell me as a military man, how is it that such a small force of very poorly trained men and boys was able to cause so much destruction?
I wouldn't say they were poorly trained. They were training every other day in the forests of Bao. These are people who operate with different equipment that they get from abroad. I think the fact that an efficient force was able to dislodge them does not in itself mean that they were poorly trained and poorly equipped and poorly. They managed to hold territory for quite a long time, from 2017 to 2021.
Yes.
Mosimbo had prior and some areas of Palma.
4 years.
4 years. So you cannot say it is a. You need to put things in context. The fact that they were dislodged by a better force does not make them
A bad force.
a weak force. So I think we must put this in context.
Was the fighting hard?
It was hard in the sense that we had to outmaneuver them in many ways. We had to beat them at their own game. We are a force that has lived all conditions. We have fought insurgencies. We have trained for different scenarios, so it was easy for us to deal with them. Because when you have a force that does not hold ground, that operates in small groups, attacks, through ambushes, you need to really know exactly how to respond to such a force, and that's what we did. So I wouldn't say it was easy, but I will insist that they needed popular support. They needed support from the public, which they didn't have. And we basically got it.
Yes.
And that's why we beat them at their own game.
Yes. So what about Rwanda's counterinsurgency strategy makes it so successful when they are, fighting rebels and whatnot? Because obviously it's worked here. Is it because of for example, our own insurgency? Back in the late 90s, we were dealing with Abachenjezi, and they were really in the communities. Was the lessons of, the fight against the Abachenjezi, were those the kind of lessons that then helped form our counter-insurgency protocol?
In a way, yes. In a way, lessons from our insurgency informed us and guided us in everything we do. First of all, it is important for you to address human security issues, for the population to realize that actually you are a force for change, a force for positive change. And in any insurgency, you must seek to address the underlying causes of the insurgency. That's the first thing. And I think we've learned from our own insurgency that we must work towards that. But there are several other actions that are embedded within that philosophy. One of them is, of course, reconciling a broken society, integrating without taking very serious punitive measures against those who are in the insurgency, because that discourages people from returning back. You need to give a certain, amnesty to people who are engaged in an insurgency to come back and go on with their own lives. In our own situation, there were people who could have actually been charged with
terrorism.
Cases. Yeah, with terrorism. We tried as much as possible to understand their reasons for fighting and address them. That's our philosophy.
Yes.
And I think that helped quite a lot. But beyond that history, our force also needs to be disciplined. We must take serious measures against those who breach, those who perform unlawful acts. And I think our president was very tough on unlawful people who were, carrying out acts of retribution, for their families who were killed in the 1994 genocide. I mean, in order for you to reconcile a society, you really need to take very serious measures. And I think our president did the best to, you know, contain the situation. It could have easily gone out of hand. And so we can pass on some of those lessons to our Mozambican counterparts to reconcile, you know, as much as they can, and you know, integrate some of these people. And, you know,
Is that what you're seeing?
that's what we are
happening?
seeing today. And you've seen some returnees coming back. Some were involved, especially the young ones. The young ones have been indoctrinated, and many of them unwillingly. Actually, most of them. That's what makes this scenario better than most other scenarios. Most of the people who were recruited into the ranks of Ansar al-Sunnah wa Jamaa were forced to join the ranks. I mean, about 90% were all forced. So it's easy to integrate such people back to society and, you know, show them that we are a force for good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The fight against terrorists, though successful, here has a cost, especially to, you know, the military men and women who are on the front line. Lives are lost. This is not just, it's not war games, it's real life and death. You know, kill or be killed. But not only are the soldiers dying, that is one level of sacrifice, but, you know, some are simply away from home. You know, they're far from their loved ones. So when you, as a military hierarchy, or even you as a senior officer, when you're talking to the families of the deceased, or even the families of those who have been sent to go on missions and are simply missing their husbands, brothers, cousins, fathers, what are you telling those people back home that their sons and daughters are fighting and dying for? Is there, and how are you helping them understand that their sacrifice is well worth it?
There's only one thing that I can keep emphasizing in regard to our job as servicemen. We are ready to pay the ultimate price in order to protect civilians wherever we deploy, be it in peacekeeping missions or bilateral interventions. That's our belief. We are trained to operate like that, and that is based on our history. We saw millions being slaughtered in 1994. In 2004, we made the decision to join peacekeeping missions and protect civilians wherever we're called upon. We have done it in Darfur, we have done it in South Sudan, we have done it in Cal, and we're doing it in Mozambique. This is something we signed for. This is something we believe in. So we tell these families that, you know, we are all in the military to serve our nation, to protect civilians. These are principles that we all believe in. I told you that I joined in 1999 after the genocide against the Tutsi. For me, I felt that, you know, I need to be part of the process that will halt a future genocide. And so that was my driving force. That was my philosophy.
How old were you when you joined?
I was 25.
Okay.
Yeah. And and I felt that I should be part of this process. And I believe many others, these young men who are joining every day, believe so. They believe that we need to protect civilians wherever we are called upon. And it doesn't matter race, tribe, ethnic group. Human beings are human beings. You know, so we need to be part. We need to work towards protecting civilians wherever we are called upon.
It seems like what you're saying is such an easy thing to get your head around, right? Protect the weak if you're strong. It's almost biblical. It's almost like a command from God. But we don't see, there seems to be a certain exceptionalism of the Rwandan Defense Forces or even the Rwandan security forces in that. With that whole Kigali Declaration for the protection of... We are not the only country that has suffered genocide. We're not the only people that have suffered genocide. But something about our experience made the protection of civilians the cornerstone of our military doctrine. Why
Absolutely.
have other armies not taken or have not understood that fundamentally an armed force is there to protect the weak?
I wouldn't speak for them, but our own history dictates how we behave. And I think we've had lessons. We've seen how helpless human beings can be in the face of a very unfair system.
Yeah.
And therefore, that is what pushes us every day.
Yes.
Be it in the jungles of Cabo Delgado, or you talked of the humid environments that we operate in.
Absolutely.
The cause matters. Why are we doing all this? We are doing it in order for us to fulfill something we signed for. And there are a number of countries that do that. I believe the US does it in different countries, albeit with other interests, but that is usually their philosophy. And I think the young men who are not directly involved in the interests will serve with diligence because they understand the value of human life. Yeah. So this is something we believe in.
Yeah. Let's talk about the future of the RDF and the Rwandan military. We're looking at a world that is going really into, robotics, AI, hypersonic missiles, where it's no longer the world that some of us were raised in of Kalashnikovs and gumboots. How does our military stay focused on not just the threats of today, which might be, sandal-wearing insurgents, but also maybe a future where the enemy might be an AI-powered robot that has been programmed in, not only by a state, because maybe, I'm thinking crazy thoughts here, but maybe 15 years from now, 20 years from now, the terrorist group, the FDLR will not be sending human beings. They'll be maybe sending robots with, how is the RDF, how is our military preparing for a future that we can't even imagine right now as we sit here and talk?
Research. Research and development. That's it. We keep improving ourselves as far as equipping our units and to deal with contemporary threats and to deal with our adversaries' equipment. And so we are always researching.
Yeah.
We are moving forward.
Yeah.
We've moved from Kalashnikov to other weapons, and so we are advancing. Yeah. So without necessarily going into the details of what we are doing,
fine.
I can give you a guarantee that our research and development is productive. It's doing its job.
But you do see the new, threats on the horizon.
Yeah, we do. We do.
If it's not a secret, maybe I just threw in a couple of threats for all of humanity when I'm talking about AI and robotics. Are there certain threats that you see as military men?
We do, but I'm not at liberty to discuss all our threats. At least others pop up. Yeah, so yeah, we do. We observe. We have a research team that looks at them every other day.
Okay. I cannot leave this interview without asking a question that you've probably got tired of hearing, the
Okay.
Congo question. Congo. Yes, we're in Cabo Delgado, but Congo seems to be our eternal question. Today is the 20th, and right now, actually, their borders are closed as they go through an election for a presidential and, if I'm not mistaken, a legislative election. We've been hearing and reading a lot of threats coming from the presidential candidate and president. So he's the same person, Tshisekedi, about what he's going to do. He said that in the next, if he wins, 2 weeks after, he'll go to the parliament, call a joint session of parliament, and declare war on Rwanda. I know that this question is a political question, but because he's moved it from the realm of politics, although war is politics, it's just in another format. But now he's talking about moving his troops across our border and into Rwanda. How ready is the RDF to meet the Congolese military threat if and when he decides to put his declarations into action?
I will answer the political question with a military answer.
Yes.
We are ready.
Ready.
We are ready for any of those, and we are always ready for that anyway. There's nothing new in our readiness. Yeah, so we are ready for that action if it ever comes.
So people should rest easy.
They should rest easy.
No,
We are
no
very
problem.
ready. Yeah.
HE said a few years back that Rwandans should take their security for granted.
Exactly.
You agree with that?
I agree entirely.
Of course you do. That's your Commander-in-Chief.
Yes.
Yeah, Afande Rwivanga, thank you so much
Thank you
for joining us.
Thank you very much.